At exactly 36 seconds in, Trump slammed his hand on the table, pointed at Jasmine Crockett, and sneered, "She's low IQ, I dare her to take a test." Cameras flashed, gasps echoed through the chamber. Jasmine remained unfazed. Calmly, she reached into her folder, pulled out a sealed envelope, and let it fall to the desk with a quiet finality. Whatever was inside made the most self-assured man in America lean back like he'd just seen a ghost. The hearing room looked like truth had been scrubbed out of it long ago. Everything appeared too pristine. Democracy polished like glass. The marble floors gleamed like slick ice. The walls reflected so clearly you could see your own hesitation staring back. The flags behind the dais stood rigid, stiff as if pressed into obedience. Even the air felt rehearsed, unnaturally cool, stripped of tension but heavy with unease. Microphone lights blinked red, like laser sights on every chair. Overhead lights didn't shine. They pierced. Bright, clinical beams designed to expose every crease, every bead of sweat, every twitch betraying deception. This wasn't just Capitol Hill, it was Capitol Theater. And today's spotlight belonged to a woman who didn't need a mic to be heard. Jasmine Crockett walked in with the confidence of someone experienced. But this moment was different. Her heels didn't click, they struck. Each step like the beat of a countdown, not to an explosion, but to a revelation. No bright colors, no broad smiles, just a midnight blue suit, razor sharp in its simplicity, and a gaze so focused it could chill the smirk off any billionaire's face. Jim Jordan spotted her first. He nudged Eric Trump, leaned over, and whispered something with the smugness of high school boys in detention, half amused, half intimidated. Eric glanced over, assessed her like she was wearing something his father wouldn't approve of, then shook his head. At the witness table sat Donald J. Trump, elbows firm, fingers steepled, grin wide, the look of someone who believed he owned the room, the narrative, even the facts. He didn't nod, didn't blink, just locked eyes with Jasmine, like a predator sizing up the only creature in the wild that wasn't afraid of him. But Jasmine didn't flinch. She ignored the theatrics, sat down without a word, opened her folder as if preparing to deliver a sermon, and placed one envelope gently on the table. No markings, no rush, just paper. And silence. Yet, when it touched the wood, the atmosphere shifted. It sparked, like static, like a warning. CNN zoomed in. MSNBC adjusted their feed. Twitter lit up instantly. IQ test began trending, though no one had spoken the words out loud yet. Chairman Malin cleared his throat, sounding more like a judge than a legislator. Today's hearing will review academic transparency, campaign credentials, and the relevance of standardized testing in public office. He didn't glance at Trump, but the room did. Jasmine tapped the envelope once, a soft gesture, but it hit like a gavel, sharp, final. Trump's grin faltered briefly. Most missed it. But Jasmine didn't. And when a man like Trump blinks first, there's no need to shout. You just wait for the moment to collapse on its own. What happens when the loudest man in America challenges the wrong woman to speak? The silence that followed was heavy. Not calm, but charged. Trump leaned into the mic, adjusted his posture, and began reading from his prepared remarks on education reform. But he barely got through the opening lines about restoring academic excellence before he glanced toward Jasmine again. Something in the room shifted. He paused, smiled, not to charm, but to provoke. And frankly, he said, voice slick and rehearsed, some of these people shouldn't even be in this room. I mean, look at that one. His hand lifted, not pointing, but aimed at Jasmine like a veiled threat. Low IQ. AOC too. I wouldn't trust either of them to run a classroom, let alone Congress. There it was, the opening shot. Blunt, strategic, just vague enough to skirt official reprimand, but clear enough for cameras to catch every word. A dry chuckle rose from the right. Marjorie Taylor Greene's laugh. Sharp, nasal, smug. She covered her mouth, but her shoulders gave her away. Jim Jordan grinned. Eric Trump leaned back, satisfied, like a boy proud of his father's insult. Republican aides tried to keep straight faces, but they didn't have to. The message had been delivered. They assumed Jasmine had been shaken, but she didn't move. Didn't speak, didn't even blink. Just kept one finger resting lightly on the envelope, like a switch she hadn't yet decided to flip. In her mind, the noise was deafening. They want rage, she thought. They want the angry black woman moment, the viral clip. But I'll give them something quieter, something they won't see coming. Trump, encouraged, pushed on. I've taken IQ tests, he bragged. Real ones. Not just anyone can take those. You have to be a genius. His grin widened. I passed with flying colors. That's why I'm here. They're struggling. He wasn't looking at the chairman, not even at the cameras. His focus was locked on Jasmine. Then, with the same overconfidence he used to announce bankruptcies and pardons, he dropped it. Settle this with an IQ test. 8 words. That's all it took. 8 words that would light up social media. 8 words that would split the room like a fault line. 8 words that, within a day, would come back to haunt him. The tension snapped, reporters blinked, phones rose, gasps rustled the room like a storm rolling in. Yet Jasmine didn't flinch. She adjusted in her chair, lifted the envelope slightly, and nudged it an inch closer to the mic. A small gesture, but it struck like thunder. Trump didn't even notice. He was too caught up in the crowd, enjoying the chaos he believed he controlled. But Jasmine knew better. Chaos was easier to manage than facts, especially when they came wrapped in sealed white paper. And behind that paper lay a truth that 31 million Americans weren't ready for. Not yet, but they would be. Because Donald Trump had just challenged the wrong woman. The room still hadn't settled. Trump leaned back in his chair like a fighter who thought he'd already won in the first round. Eric smirked beside him, eyes glued to his phone, likely watching a clip already trending on X. Jim Jordan whispered something to Marjorie, who scrawled bold notes across a yellow legal pad. Everyone assumed Jasmine Crockett had taken the hit and stayed down. But then, calmly and almost politely, Jasmine leaned toward the clerk's desk. "I'd like to move my questioning to the end of the session," she said. Her voice didn't rise, it didn't need to. It was the kind of quiet that changes a room without anyone realizing it, like the air before a storm. The clerk blinked. The chairman paused. Then, after a moment that lasted just a bit too long, he nodded, approved. No one questioned it. But a few eyes narrowed slightly. Something had shifted, though no one could name what. In the back corridor, 2 of Jasmine's aides moved with quiet urgency. One carried a black leather folio, the other a sealed brown envelope. Thick, aged, and marked with fading ink. Confidential, 1964. Admissions. Jasmine didn't turn around when it arrived. She didn't have to. The moment it touched the table behind her chair, she felt it, not in her hands, but in her spine. History has a pulse. She reached back, slid the envelope beneath her papers, and rested her hand on top of it like she was keeping a ghost at bay. Across the room, Trump kept talking, complaining about test scores, claiming people didn't understand what America really needed. His voice was loud, but no longer landed, not where it counted. Jasmine wasn't listening to him. She was listening to a memory. Years ago, her father, an inner-city teacher who never earned more than $42,000, 0 cents a year, once told her at the kitchen table, "The most dangerous thing you can bring into a room is the truth dressed like a whisper." She was 9. She hadn't understood it then. Now, it was the principle she lived by. She smiled, not the kind that flashed teeth, but the kind that showed strategy, the kind of smile a chess master wears before moving a pawn that traps the king in 3 moves. The chairman called for recess, chairs slid back, reporters typed, security shifted. Trump laughed, joking about wasting time on nobodies. But for the first time since Jasmine entered, he didn't look at her. Something in his instincts, buried beneath ego and layers of spin, told him she wasn't finished, not by a long shot. And she wasn't just holding paper, she was holding proof, the quiet kind, the kind that explodes. So what was in that envelope? Something that would make Trump wish the cameras had been off. The room's energy had shifted, but no one could pinpoint when. It wasn't dramatic. It felt like the stillness before a storm, when leaves flip over and animals go quiet. Jasmine hadn't said a word since Trump's rant. No glances, no reactions. But her silence had weight. She had asked for the final questioning slot, and no one objected. It was as if her silence had taken over the room, and no one noticed until it was too late. The cameras noticed. CNN's feed zoomed in on her face between moments. Her expression wasn't angry. It was focused, like someone watching a clock they had already set to go off. Even the anchor back in the studio stumbled. Looks like Congresswoman Crockett is holding something back today. We'll stay on her feed. Outside the chamber, buzz grew. NBC's alert pinged. Jasmine Crockett requests final question slot, declines rebuttal. Headlines multiplied. Is she waiting for something? Silence or strategy? Inside, Jasmine remained still. Her hand lightly touched the pen she hadn't uncapped. Occasionally, she checked her watch. Not for time, but rhythm, syncing her breath to something only she could sense. 3 seats down, Marjorie whispered to Jordan, "She's stalling. She's got nothing." Jordan nodded, but not confidently. His eyes kept drifting to Jasmine's folder and the envelope beneath it. Trump, meanwhile, shifted from confidence to boastfulness. His voice grew louder, full of self-praise. "Frankly, this might be one of my best hearings. Nobody even challenged me." His words echoed like bad theater. We all know who's qualified in this room. But Jasmine wasn't watching him. She was watching the room. Who laughed, who shifted, who avoided her gaze. She wasn't here to argue. She was here to let the rope tighten. One of her aides moved quietly down a side hallway, giving a small signal. A nod, a glance at her phone. Jasmine read the message once, then put the phone away. No reaction. But she knew. The final piece had arrived. The document was confirmed. The source legitimate. It was time. But not just yet. Let him keep talking. Let them all keep laughing, because the best traps work when no one knows they're already in one. And Jasmine Crockett wasn't stalling because she was scared. She was waiting because when the truth lands, real truth, it doesn't clap. It shakes the ground, and that hearing room had no idea how close they were to the epicenter. It happened quietly. A soft knock at the side door. An aide entered with a plain manila envelope, tucked securely under her arm like a message too dangerous to open in public. No one noticed her at first. That was the beauty of timing. In a room obsessed with noise, silence carried the sharpest edge. Jasmine didn't look up. She waited until the aide stood directly behind her, then reached back, not quickly, but deliberately. Her fingers closed around the envelope like it was a lit match. And again, her father's voice echoed in her mind. The truth dressed like a whisper. She slid it beneath her notes like it was just another document, but it wasn't. It was the document, the one that took weeks of quiet work, a signed affidavit, 2 background checks, and the cooperation of a man who hadn't spoken publicly in nearly 6 decades. The name on the paper was redacted, but Jasmine knew it. Robert Steedman, Trump's former classmate at military school. A man whose face had weathered, but whose memory was precise. He'd sat for a 2-hour deposition with Jasmine's legal team. In 1964, he took the SATs in place of Donald Trump and kept the proof. Inside the envelope were 2 pages. One, a letter from the New York Military Academy confirming Trump's scheduled exam and his unexcused absence. The second, a sworn statement in neat handwriting. I was paid $1,000, 0 cents by Fred Trump to take the SAT for his son. Beneath that, a signature, military records, matching handwriting samples, and a scanned ID from a VA hospital. Jasmine reread it, though she didn't need to. Every word was etched into her bloodstream. This wasn't about intelligence anymore. It wasn't even about ego. It was about a lie so old, so hidden, that the truth had started to sound like fiction. But it was real, and it was sitting under her hand. Across the room, Trump kept bragging about test scores, about success, about how some people just weren't made for excellence. His voice carried like static. He had no idea the floor beneath him was giving way. Jasmine didn't respond. She didn't flinch. The trap was fully set. And the next time she spoke, it wouldn't be to react. It would be to reveal. The room settled back into its rhythm, but Jasmine wasn't tuned in. She wasn't there to be part of the noise. She was there to use it. Trump, loud and confident, was giving her everything she needed. The chairman called on her. She rose slowly. No theatrics, just purpose. She approached the microphone like she would in court, not to argue, but to dismantle. "Mr. Trump," she began, voice even and calm. "Earlier, you described yourself as a very stable genius and someone who's always tested exceptionally well. Is that correct?" Trump smiled, full of pride. "That's right. I've always tested extremely well. Some of the best scores ever. SATs, too. That's how I got into Wharton." Jasmine nodded slowly, letting silence surround the words. "And you've said that before publicly, haven't you? That you graduated at the top of your class?" "Absolutely," he replied. "Tremendous grades, everyone says so. Wharton loved me. Professors were amazed." The room was silent, but the tension sharpened. "Would you be willing," Jasmine asked, "to release those records, your SAT scores, your college transcripts, since you've brought them into public conversation?" Trump scoffed. "Of course, I've got nothing to hide. I've said it for years, happy to share them. They prove everything. I passed with flying colors, everyone knows it." And under Jasmine's hand, aides exchanged uneasy glances. Otherwise. Marjorie didn't notice the subtle tension in the air. Even Jim Jordan remained fixed on the cameras. Jasmine didn't smile. "Thank you for confirming that, Mr. Trump," she said, tapping the folder in front of her without opening it. "These documents," she continued, "pertain to your standardized testing history." Trump blinked once, not in fear, not yet, but it was a crack in the facade. "You wouldn't object, I assume," she added, "if this committee reviewed the materials to verify your statements today, correct?" Trump gave a casual shrug. "Go ahead. I've said what I said. They'll only back it up." The hook was in. And Jasmine hadn't even raised her voice. Turning toward the chairman, she said, "Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'll submit these items into the hearing record at the end of today's testimony." He nodded silently. Trump leaned back, smug again. "See? Told you. Transparency." But he hadn't registered the shift in her demeanor, the quiet focus gathering around her next move. He expected confrontation. He assumed she'd go for the knockout. That was the strategy he recognized. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't attacking. She was dissecting. He braced for a strike. Instead, she was letting him lay the groundwork for his own undoing. The silence in the room had changed, no longer empty, but charged. Every camera shifted to Jasmine as she opened the folder with measured, deliberate motion. Her hands were steady, practiced, not dramatic, not hurried, but precise, like someone who understood that the moment she opened that file, the weight in the room would shift. She slid a single document from its sleeve, a yellowed letter typed with a faint watermark still visible beneath the ink. She held it up momentarily, then laid it on the desk so the cameras could clearly see every word. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she let the tension settle in, drawing taut across the room. "This," she said evenly, "is an official letter from the New York Military Academy dated May 10, 1964. Trump tilted his head slightly. A flicker crossed his face, recognition perhaps, or unease masquerading as something else. Jasmine read aloud. "This letter confirms that Cadet Donald J. Trump failed to appear for his scheduled SAT examination on May 2, 1964. No reason was provided, no request for rescheduling was submitted." The statement hit like a jolt. A few reporters gasped, chairs creaked. Jim Jordan blinked rapidly. Eric Trump froze mid-tap with his pen. Marjorie Taylor Greene dropped her notepad. Trump let out a loud, too quick laugh. "That's ridiculous. Never happened. I got perfect scores. Ask anyone." Jasmine didn't react. She reached into the folder again and pulled out a tablet. One tap, and the screen lit up. Speakers buzzed. A grainy video began playing. The room turned as one toward the screen, transfixed, like watching an eclipse. On it, a frail man lay in a hospital bed, pale, thin, but lucid. He looked directly into the camera, the years heavy in his expression. "My name is Robert Steedman," he began. "In 1964, I was paid $1,000, 0 cents, by Fred Trump to take the SAT for his son, Donald." The room went still, even Trump didn't speak. Steedman's voice continued, steady and sure. I was promised a favor. I wore his cadet uniform, I signed his name, I took the test. And I've kept that secret for 58 years. Trump erupted. This is fake news. That man doesn't even exist. He slammed his palm on the desk, startling the microphones, his face flushed. I never missed a test in my life. This is a hoax, a witch hunt. But Jasmine stood firm. She stepped away from the mic. The man you claim doesn't exist, she said, was confirmed by 2 federal investigators, a handwriting analyst, and a witness protection advisor. His testimony is signed, notarized, and now entered into the congressional record. Trump clenched his fists. I want that removed. You can't put that in the record. Chairman Millen leaned forward. You testified under oath, Mr. Trump. She just brought documentation. The audience, once silent, now buzzed like a disturbed hive. But Jasmine stayed composed. She sat down. The trap had been set and sprung without her ever raising her voice. It was the sound of power unraveling, and it began with Eric Trump's voice cracking through the tension. Cut the feed, cut the damn feed, he shouted, half out of his chair, waving toward the nearest technician. This is illegal, you can't air this. His tone wasn't authoritative. It was desperate, shaky with panic, as if watching the stage curtain fall too soon. But the red lights on the cameras stayed on. CNN didn't budge. MSNBC turned up the volume. Jasmine didn't even glance his way. She didn't have to. The evidence was already circulating. There was no cure. Marjorie Taylor Greene shot up like a fuse reaching its charge. Mr. Chairman, she yelled, pointing at the screen, strike that from the record. This is character assassination. It's unconstitutional. Chairman Millen stayed composed. He leaned into his mic with the weight of finality. Everything said under oath remains on record, including sworn affidavits and verified testimony from federal agents. Trump slammed the desk again, knuckles whitening. This is a setup. She's lying. I demand a rebuttal witness. This is all fake. I never... But he was unraveling now, trapped between rage and the dread of realizing the exits were sealed and the fire was real. Cameras didn't flinch. Reporters typed like stenographers at a live firefight. In the control rooms of every major network, producers murmured, "Do not cut away." Behind Jasmine, her aide silently handed her another document. There was no theatrics, just strategic precision. Jim Jordan leaned toward Greene. We need to stall, call for a procedural delay. But time no longer belonged to them. Then Jasmine spoke, calm, steady, the voice of someone who knew the blaze had begun, because she lit it. Mr. Trump, she said, you volunteered to share your academic record. We simply confirmed what it's always been. Trump's chest heaved beneath his suit. She continued, you called me low IQ. You said others were unqualified. I didn't need to shout. I brought facts and let them speak. Greene snapped her notebook shut. Jordan's fists were clenched to bone. Eric sat back down because his knees couldn't hold him anymore. Malayan gave once sharp, like a crack of thunder. This hearing will proceed as scheduled, he said, and unless you have contradictory evidence, Mr. Trump, I suggest you remain seated. But Jasmine wasn't done, because what she'd shown was proof. What came next was motive. The room was so quiet it created a sound of its own. Not respect, not peace. Something raw and stunned. A pressure like the seconds before an earthquake. Donald Trump sat frozen, his fingers tracing invisible circles on the desk, as though searching for a way out that didn't exist. Marjorie stopped writing. Jordan crossed his arms. Eric looked down, not from guilt, but because there was nothing left to see. They had heard hundreds of testimonies, but never one like this. One that didn't shout, yet shook the ground anyway. And at the center of it all, Jasmine Crockett remained completely still. She didn't adjust her mic, didn't flip her notes, didn't touch her jacket. Her silence wasn't hesitation, it was resolution. Then she spoke again, calm, clear, unwavering. This, she said, is what you called low IQ. Truth under oath. The words landed harder than the documents, not because they were loud, but because they were exact, deserved, and precise. Everyone in the room remembered when Trump had spat those words at her, like gum stuck to his shoe. But here she was, poised, direct, holding a paper that cut through his carefully built image. She didn't need revenge. She had evidence. No one moved. No one objected. Chairman Millen blinked, then cleared his throat and glanced at the clock, not to check the time but because he couldn't yet meet her gaze. Jasmine turned the envelope sideways, slipping it under her notes, not to conceal it, but to clear space for what was coming. Because this wasn't closure. It was a pivot, the start of what followed. She hadn't come only to show he lied. She came to reveal who had paid the price for it. She had one more file beneath her hand, not aged or worn, but pristine, filed by someone who only had hope until it was stolen with a check, a handshake, and a lie. Jasmine didn't say another word. She didn't need to. The strength of her restraint did more than any outrage could. Outside, headlines blazed. Crockett disarms Trump with 1964 ESAT proof. Congresswoman flips IQ insult into public reckoning. Capitol hears loudest silence in political memory. And inside that chamber, no one breathed. They all knew what was coming, and they understood it wasn't about Trump anymore. It was about the boy who never got in, the one erased to make room for the Trumps. And that wasn't even the most dangerous lie he had once dreamed of serving in government. Instead, he spent 32 years driving a city bus in Queens. He did it with dignity, with pride, but never with peace. The room was completely still, every face focused on the screen. Jasmine never looked away from Danielle. The video shifted to audio. A dated, crackling voicemail played, left on Danielle's phone just months before Elliot died. The sound was rough, but his voice, worn and unmistakable, came through. Miller, Chiller. I always thought I wasn't enough, Elliot said. I thought I did something wrong. Maybe my essay wasn't strong enough. Maybe they didn't like my photo. I didn't know they never even looked at me. Danielle's voice returned, softer now and cracking. He died, never knowing the truth, never knowing he was more than qualified, that he was enough, that his place was stolen before he even had a chance. The screen faded to black. No music, no commentary, just silence. Now full of grief, full of names like Elliot's, erased by men who never earned their seats. Jasmine rose slowly. The folder was closed. The record now complete. She looked around the room. Every eye met hers. No one looked away. My father, she began quietly, was a teacher. He once told me lies are like shadows. The longer they go unchallenged, the farther they stretch. But shine the right light once, and they disappear. Her hand rested gently on the closed folder. Today is that light, for a man who never got his chance, and for every name they tried to bury with him. Trump didn't move. His mouth was tight, hands clenched. No smirks, no comeback. Even he seemed to understand there's no mocking a ghost who had just spoken through his daughter. But Jasmine wasn't done, because sometimes ghosts don't just speak, they call for justice. It didn't matter if you were in a diner in Nebraska, a school in New York, or a nursing home in Atlanta. Screens lit up everywhere with the same image. Jasmine Crockett, still, framed in that hearing room, caught between disbelief and resolve. And then the public responded. Not politicians, not pundits, people. Twitter came first, then TikTok, Reddit, Instagram stories. Thousands of messages poured out in real time, stacking faster by the second. A single sentence kept repeating like a chorus. Her way into the heart of the White House during her exposed everything. Some were written in outrage. Trump bought the seat. Crockett brought the proof. Elliot Harmon's name will be in school books because of her. Others came in sorrow. My dad applied to Wharton in 1970. He died thinking he wasn't good enough. This broke something in me. All my life I've been told I was too much or not enough. She didn't shout, but she lifted all of us. Even late-night comedians held their punchlines. Even conservative forums, usually echo chambers, showed signs of fracture. One trending post read, "This isn't politics, this is history." Cable news scrambled to catch up. CNN dropped its panel and let the footage speak for itself. MSNBC looped her words. Is what you called low IQ truth under oath. Fox tried to spin the narrative to sow doubt. But the emotion in the room, the humanity, made every attempt at deflection feel hollow and strained. Inside the chamber, the mood had shifted. The arrogance was gone. No more laughter. Even the marble walls seemed heavier. Trump sat stiff, his jaw clenched, ears red. Marjorie Taylor Greene kept her hands in her lap, her notes untouched. Eric Trump stared at the floor, as if hoping to disappear. Jasmine Crockett didn't blink. She let the silence stay. She let the world feel what it had ignored for decades. Chairman Millett leaned toward the mic. "Congresswoman Crockett," he asked gently, "do you have anything more to present?" Without pause, Jasmine reached back into her folder. The first file had shattered a lie. The second had given a man back his dignity. Now she lifted a third, thicker than the others. A new folder, not faded, but stamped in fresh red. Classified U.S. Department of Education. 2 names were partially blacked out, but the watermark was unmistakable. And its impact hit before a single word was said. She laid it flat on the table, her fingers resting lightly on top. Even though the cameras couldn't see her eyes, the message was unmistakable. This wasn't just about Trump anymore. This was about every person who helped him walk away without consequence. And just when the nation thought it had seen it all, Jasmine raised the second file. She didn't speak. Not yet. She didn't need to. The weight in the room had already changed. The air felt heavier, thicker, like the oxygen itself had taken notice. Something had shifted, become sharper, more charged. Trump shook her hand with a noticeable stiffness. His gaze darted between the cameras, the committee, and then her fingers. The man who once electrified arenas now sat in a chair that seemed to shrink with the weight of silence. He sensed what was coming, something irreversible. Jasmine unclipped a folder. Inside was a printed college transcript. Clean, official-looking, complete with a watermark and the seal of the University of Pennsylvania. It was the same document Trump's campaign had quietly circulated in 2016 and referenced again during the 2020 rallies. It included grades, course names, honors, even a signature. He had shown it off in interviews, brandished it on talk shows, let it flash on screen long enough to impress supporters and stall critics. Jasmine placed the document beneath the overhead projector. Her tone was calm, exact. This is the academic transcript repeatedly cited by Mr. Trump's campaign since 2016. It is said to reflect his academic record at Wharton. She paused briefly, allowing it to land. We submitted this transcript to 2 independent credential experts and a curriculum archivist at the University of Pennsylvania. She turned the page with deliberate care. Here's what they found. She tapped the display. The screen zoomed in on the transcript. In the first semester, there is a class called Business Strategy Misspelled and awarded an A. This course didn't exist in 1966. In fact, it still doesn't exist. The committee stirred. Reporters sat up. Even Millett leaned forward. In the second semester, she continued, a course is listed as Global Economics Interim. According to Wharton's archives, no such course was ever offered. At the time, the curriculum included only Economics 1 in the core program. A quiet gasp broke through the room. From the gallery, someone whispered, "Oh my God." And finally, she said, her tone firm, near the bottom of the document, next to the registrar's seal, the name of the verifying official is misspelled. She looked up. The actual registrar, Dr. Leonard Wexler, spells his name with 2 E's. This one uses 1. Under oath, Dr. Wexler confirmed he never signed this document. Trump's eyes widened, not in fear, but in calculation, searching for an exit. But there wasn't one. The pressure wasn't forceful, it was factual. Jasmine stepped back. This transcript was used to support claims of qualification for the presidency. It was presented to voters, referenced in speeches, and handed to journalists. There is no doubt it is a forgery. Trump half rose. This is a hit job, a political setup. But his voice cracked. Jasmine didn't respond. She calmly folded the page, tucked it back into the folder, and looked directly at the camera. He didn't just lie about a test. He lied about his degree, his background, the persona he sold to the public. And what comes next could shake every vote he's ever received. The folder lay closed on the table, but the unease it created lingered like static before a storm. Silence held the room. Even Trump didn't sit or speak. He stood, caught between denial and dread. Jasmine turned slightly to her right and gave a single nod. A side door opened. A tall man in a gray suit stepped in, calm and composed, a briefcase under one arm like a surgical tool. He was Dr. Eli Brenner, credential analyst, professor emeritus, and advisor to 3 Ivy League registrars. His credentials were already in the record. His appearance now was for the public eye. Jasmine gestured to the seat beside her. "Dr. Brenner," she said with steady clarity, "please share with this committee what you found in the document submitted as evidence of Mr. Trump's Wharton degree." Brenner opened his case, took out one annotated sheet, adjusted his glasses, and spoke with composed precision. "Upon reviewing the transcript, my team found numerous signs indicative of falsification. The most significant issue lies with the font used." He paused. Jasmine guided him on. "The typeface, particularly in the headers and registrar section, is Garamond Premier Pro, a font that was released in 1989. This time, the room didn't react with gasps. It simply froze. That font, he explained, did not exist in 1968. It wasn't available on typewriters, in university printers, or within any formatting standards of that time." Trump shifted in his seat, then snapped. "So now fonts are political?" Brenner didn't respond to the outburst. "We also found inconsistent kerning and pixel-based distortions in the university's seal. These indicate that the seal was taken from a modern digital image, likely a PNG, and overlaid onto a blank document. That technique wasn't possible in 1968. Jasmine leaned in, not for drama, but to cut directly to the point. "Dr. Brenner, in your expert opinion, is the document authentic?" "No, Congresswoman," he said without hesitation. "It is a forgery." She turned back to Trump, but did not look at him. Instead, she looked into the lens. "Sir," she asked, "is lying about your IQ less dangerous than lying about nuclear codes?" The words hit with weight, like a floor collapsing under pressure. No one moved. Not a sound came from the crowd. The chamber that once echoed with voices now stood in stillness, each person waiting for someone else to break the silence. Trump said nothing. Any answer would be self-incriminating. Jasmine leaned back. Her face remained unreadable. The evidence was clear. The document was fake, the font too modern, and the myth of qualifications. Just that, a myth. Outside that room, millions were already asking, if he forged his past, what else had he falsified? And the full weight of Dr. Brenner's findings had only just begun to fall. Everything shifted when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez leaned into her microphone. She didn't need volume, just clarity. Her voice sliced through the silence like a scalpel. "This isn't about intelligence," she said, deliberate and unwavering. "This is about deception used as statecraft, about a man who built a false image of merit and used it to claim the highest office in the country." She didn't wait for applause. She wasn't seeking validation. Her words simply landed. Firm. Undeniable. Jaime Raskin spoke next, his voice cold and formal, like a gavel striking steel. "Madam Chair," he began, "I formally recommend this committee forward its findings to the Department of Justice for criminal consideration. Specifically, academic fraud used as campaign deception and misrepresentation of federal qualifications under oath." He didn't glance at Trump. He didn't need to. The word fraud had already been said, live on television. Now it was being recorded. Trump slouched, his posture like a structure just before it collapses. His mouth opened briefly, no words followed. His fingers twitched near the table's edge, tugging at a napkin that wasn't there. The man who once dominated rooms with noise and insult now sat in the silence he had created. The cameras knew it, and didn't look away. Jasmine hadn't moved, still as stone, her expression unreadable. No triumph, no anger, just control. She turned stillness into command, silence into focus. And the nation could feel it. In homes across America, viewers didn't change the channel, they leaned in. No one scrolled past. They texted friends, "Turn this on." Behind her, aides moved with calm precision. No chaos, just order. Documents passed, dates logged, exhibits numbered. The hearing wasn't a spectacle anymore. It was a record. Every falsehood Trump had spun was being documented in real time. In the press gallery, reporters typed quickly. Screens buzzed. Headlines started to form before statements ended. Forgery confirmed, fraud alleged, collapse unfolding. And still, Jasmine hadn't opened the final file. Not yet. She didn't need to. Not while the room still echoed with the truth just spoken. Because what came next wasn't only about exposing Trump's lies, it was about showing who he had always targeted. That phrase, low IQ, was never accidental. It wasn't an offhand remark. It was calculated, strategic, and deeply racial. Jasmine had recognized it the moment he said it. She knew the playbook. And she had waited, patiently, intentionally. Now, with the nation listening, she was nearly ready to reveal why that insult wasn't a slip, it was a pattern. And Jasmine hadn't even reached the core yet, the lie behind why he insulted her in the first place. Jasmine Crockett didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The room had already gone still, emptied by the weight of truth. Now she would cut, not with anger, but with evidence. She lifted a small remote and pressed play. The monitors lit up. First, Maxine Waters. The clip started mid-sentence. Trump, at a rally. Which is a very low IQ individual? Laughter followed. But then AOC. Low IQ. I don't think she knows what she's talking about. Applause. Ilhan Omar. Disaster, not smart, low IQ. The crowd laughed louder. Finally, Jasmine Crockett. Recruiting on competition talk, maybe she should stick to traffic court. The insult spanned 7 years. 4 women, 4 targets, 1 repeated attack. When the screen faded to black, Jasmine paused. 1 beat. 2. Then she stood. Her voice didn't rise, it deepened, reaching straight into conscience. Every time he's threatened by a woman of color speaking truth, she said evenly, this is his response. He doesn't debate, he diminishes. He doesn't engage, he erases. Her gaze moved from the dais to the blinking lenses of live broadcast. This isn't just rhetoric, it's routine. Trump sat frozen. No swagger, no interruptions. His hands were locked tightly, knuckles white and twitching. Jasmine didn't look at him. She spoke through him. You claimed it was about intelligence, she continued. But intelligence doesn't scare you, accountability does. Outside the chamber, Twitter exploded. Hashtags surged. Reflex of fear, low IQ pattern. News anchors cut in mid-story to return to the hearing. Viewers everywhere leaned forward, mouths slightly open. Because now it wasn't just about lies, it was about repetition. About power, built on the comfort of old habits and protected by silence. Marjorie Taylor Greene shifted uneasily. Matt Gaetz tapped his pen like a metronome. No one interrupted. No one called reclaiming my time. Because Jasmine hadn't accused, she had shown. AOC, watching quietly, gave the faintest nod. Rashida Tlaib blinked, but stayed silent. Jasmine's act wasn't a takedown, it was a decryption. She took the insult meant to shrink her and turned it into a mirror. Now it reflected everywhere. Jasmine turned back to the dais. Language matters, she said, especially when it's used as a weapon, masked in humor, and rewarded with applause. She paused, and especially when it's recycled, targeting the same kinds of people again and again. She didn't ask for sympathy. She never had. But in that moment, she wasn't standing just for herself. She was pulling back the curtain on a political tactic used for decades. And for the first time, millions were seeing the full picture, the pattern, the machinery. But Jasmine hadn't yet explained why Trump used that insult that day, what he had been trying to divert attention from. The room didn't breathe, not from restraint, just uncertainty. After the montage and the careful dismantling of years-old rhetoric, there were no shouts of fake news, no scoffs, no last-minute rebuttals. Trump remained still, not from dignity, but because the plan had failed. The blow hadn't come from outrage, it had come from calm, and that's what shook him. Jasmine stood, no papers, no notes, just her, the mic, and millions watching. She leaned in slightly, her eyes on the camera, as if looking straight at America. I don't need to prove my IQ, she said, voice clear and steady, and to try to destroy it because it's the one thing he couldn't buy. The silence afterward wasn't empty, it was charged. Trump shifted for the first time in minutes, but there was nowhere left to go. The script he expected, the one where she snapped, shouted, fumbled, never arrived. Jasmine had torched it. Then she rewrote it with facts. She didn't speak from fury, she spoke from memory. He called me low IQ, she said, like he did Maxine, like he did Ilhan, like he did AOC. But let's be clear. He didn't mean unintelligent. He meant uncontrollable. She paused, just long enough for the truth to settle in. It didn't belong to him. She wasn't afraid, and she wasn't quiet. Somewhere in the third row, a CNN aide quietly mouthed, "Oh my God." On MSNBC, the breaking news banner flashed on screen. Phones buzzed across the country. In retirement homes in Florida and apartment buildings in Detroit, older viewers leaned in, not just watching, but sensing something awaken inside them that had been still for years. Jasmine's voice dropped lower, almost to a whisper, but somehow gained weight. "He inherited wealth. I inherited a fight," she said. "He purchased his name, I earned mine. And when he realized he couldn't erase me with a slur, he tried to minimize me with a lie." Trump's face, which had burned red in defiance moments earlier, was now pale. Not from shame, but from something rarer for him. Fear. Not fear of being proven wrong, but fear of being exposed by someone who didn't need to shout to command attention. No one spoke, not Jordan, not Green, not even the chairman. It was no longer a statement, it was a reckoning. Jasmine took one final breath and met the camera's gaze again. "Call me what you want," she said, "but the truth doesn't wait for your approval to exist, and neither do I." She stepped back, her hand lowered, her voice quieted, but her presence remained like smoke after lightning. The room, the nation, the world held still. Deep down, everyone understood. The insult hadn't targeted her intelligence. It targeted the reflection he feared most. Then the silence broke. Not in outrage, not in rebuttal, but with something no one anticipated at a congressional hearing. A single clap. Then two. Then a slow, building rumble from the gallery, rolling forward like thunder after a storm, carrying with it years of restrained tension. Veterans stood. So did teachers. A retired judge wiped tears from his face. For the first time in living memory, the chamber's walls didn't echo with division, but with something that felt like truth finally catching its breath. Jasmine Crockett didn't bow. She didn't smile. She simply stepped back and let the moment pass through her like wind over stone. Marjorie Taylor Greene stood frozen, fuming, unsure whether to object or vanish. Jim Jordan buried his face behind a pile of scattered papers, pretending to read. Trump didn't move at all. From the second row, the head of the NAACP stood, not as a protester, not as a politician, but as a witness. "Madame Chair," he said, though no one had recognized him. He pointed, not harshly, but with reverence. "That woman," he said, "is the voice of a generation history tried to silence. She is not a footnote, she is the moment." The applause returned, louder now. Reporters stopped writing, they just watched. On MSNBC, Rachel Maddow whispered, "I've covered many hearings, but I've never seen one shift the entire mood of a country in real time." On social media, Jasmine's words were already being replayed, quoted, edited into tributes. But inside the chamber, none of that mattered to her. Jasmine Crockett hadn't come for applause, not for cameras, memes, or headlines. She had come for something more enduring. She came for the record. She leaned toward the microphone again, measured, clear, steady. "Thank you," she said. "But I'm not finished." The clapping slowed, then stopped, like an orchestra falling quiet at the signal of an invisible baton. "This isn't about a single insult," she continued. "It's about a pattern, and patterns carry consequences." Her hand reached for the folder, resting untouched since the hearing began. It sat like a sealed verdict, patient and still. One more file, one final document. Her fingers paused, then she delivered the line, quiet, precise, and final. She hadn't come to defeat a man. She came so history would remember that someone stood and never bowed again. She wasn't closing a case. She was beginning a legacy. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. After the evidence, the silences, the doctored letters, and the standing ovation, Jasmine Crockett returned to where it all started. She tapped the microphone once. The room froze. Then, with the calm precision of someone who had waited not hours, but a lifetime, she spoke. You told me to sit down, genius." Her voice wasn't bitter. It was exact, focused. The phrase echoed across the chamber. Heavier now than when it was first tossed out at a press conference like a careless insult. She didn't flinch. She didn't flinch. Calmly, she turned to her right and picked up a placard no bigger than a legal pad. It wasn't flashy or dramatic, but as she raised it high, the words printed on it carried undeniable weight. Article 1, Section 6, United States Constitution. For any speech or debate in either house, they shall not be questioned in any other place. The room froze. Jasmine turned the placard toward the camera, then slowly angled it toward the Republican members seated before her. "This," she said, tapping the text, "is the law of the land. I bring it with me into every hearing, every criticism, every whisper that suggests I don't belong." Trump shifted in his chair. Jasmine met his gaze. "I didn't sit down," she said quietly, her voice firm and deliberate, "because I wasn't standing for myself. I stood for every woman ever told she was too loud, too angry, too black, too much. I stood for every daughter who saw her mother stay silent in rooms that dismissed her voice. I stood for truth." The silence that followed was not empty. It was thick, charged, like the pause before a thunderclap. Outside the chamber, social media lit up. Hashtags surged, TikToks flooded timelines. A CNN anchor was caught on a hot mic mouthing, "Wow." Inside, Trump crossed his arms tighter. No smirk, no comeback. Just the stillness of someone realizing the moment had turned into a reflection. Jasmine lowered the placard with care, as if folding a flag after a battle. No one had expected her to hold her ground so firmly. Her gaze swept the room, not to threaten or boast, but to be sure they saw the truth standing on its own. Then, with her final breath of the moment, she shut her notebook and said, "I yield my time, but I will never yield my worth." Trump said nothing. No final jab, no parting spin. He rose from his chair like the floor had betrayed him and walked out beneath the same cameras that once followed his every move. His footsteps echoed off the marble, loud but hollow. For the first time in years, the room didn't move with him. CNN broke the silence. The chime hit like a bell. A legacy shaken. Congressional clash sends shockwaves across the country. Anchors sat in stunned silence, then leaned in as the footage began to loop. Jasmine Crockett, composed, unshaken, holding up the Constitution like a mirror to power. "She didn't yell," one host whispered. "She didn't have to." Online, the moment grew into something far bigger. Within 2 hours, Sit-Town Genius had more than 4 million mentions. By hour 4, it crossed 12 million. Teenagers made remixes. Veterans tweeted their gratitude. Even late-night comedians held back. One meme simply showed Jasmine standing tall with the caption, "She broke him without touching him." But beyond the screens and headlines, something more profound stirred. By noon, Jasmine's office phone lines were overwhelmed. Staffers read emails aloud, many too moved to respond. An 86-year-old retired teacher from Birmingham wrote, "I was told to sit down in 1962. Watching you stand made me feel like I finally stood too." A nurse from Detroit sent a postcard. "You didn't just call him out. You made my daughter believe she can." On walls and fences across the country, murals began appearing. Jasmine's silhouette, placard raised, was painted on a church in Atlanta, a school fence in Oakland, a courthouse in Philadelphia. Beneath each one, the same quote, "I will never yield my worth." In Washington, something had shifted. Journalists, she had drawn closer to the black women lawmakers around her. The eyes that once looked past Jasmine now followed her down every corridor. Her silence had done what no viral clip ever could. It commanded a new kind of attention, one not born of spectacle, but of certainty. While the opposition rushed to draft statements, issue press releases, and hold whispered emergency meetings, Jasmine sat quietly in her office, rereading a handwritten letter from a 14-year-old girl in rural Kansas. Written in blue ink, it read, "My mom says smart girls have to be quiet. You proved her wrong." Jasmine folded the letter, tucked it into her briefcase, and finally exhaled, not from relief, but from resolve. What had unfolded wasn't a conclusion. It was the beginning of something bigger. As the Capitol lights disappeared in the rearview mirror, Jasmine's car rolled into a humble parking lot in Dallas. There were no microphones here, no marble floors or blinking lights, just the hot Texas pavement and the low hum of a local office that smelled of copier paper and quiet strength. The hum had ceased. Still wearing the same suit from the hearing, now creased and worn like armor after battle, Jasmine stepped out. The door had barely closed when small footsteps echoed across the lobby. A young black girl, maybe 7 years old, ran toward her with uncontainable joy and wrapped her arms tightly around Jasmine's waist. Her voice trembled with emotion, but her eyes shone with determination. "I want to speak like you someday," she said, not as a compliment, but as a promise. Jasmine knelt beside her, gently brushing a curl from the girl's forehead. "You already do," she replied softly. "You just don't know it yet." The girl nodded, believing it completely. Outside, a small crowd had gathered. No media, no cameras. Just neighbors, elders, educators, custodians, and students. People who had once been told to be quiet, to wait their turn, to stay seated. Now, they stood. Some held flowers, others carried handwritten notes, but most brought only their presence, quiet yet powerful. Back in her office, Jasmine placed the final file, the one with the forged transcript, into a locked drawer. She no longer needed it. The truth wasn't confined to documents anymore. It was alive, carried in the minds of millions who had been stirred awake. She stood at the window as the sun dipped behind the horizon, casting golden light across the parking lot. For years, they had dismissed her, talked over her, reduced her to a stereotype. They mocked her voice because it conveyed something they couldn't define: clarity. When that failed, they questioned her intellect, hoping doubt would silence her. But it didn't. And it never would. Because that mind didn't belong to Jasmine alone. It represented every girl told she wasn't bright enough, every voter dismissed by arrogance, every teacher who stayed late to show a child that knowledge could be a key. They tried to quiet one voice, and in doing so made space for thousands more to rise. When Jasmine chose not to yield but to rise, quietly and powerfully, before a nation, she showed that intelligence doesn't need applause. It only needs the courage to stand firm when others try to erase it. And when that little black girl embraced her, the nation caught a glimpse of itself in that moment. Have you ever held your silence, not out of fear, but because your truth had the power to shift everything? Tell us. If this story resonated, don't just scroll past. Like, share, and subscribe to Mr. Truth Stories, where voices like Jasmine's remind us that truth doesn't need to shout. It simply stands. Tap the bell. The next chapter might not just reveal a lie. It might awaken something in you. What part of Jasmine's stand still lives inside you? Comment below. Let's not just witness history, let's move it forward. This dramatized story is inspired by real struggles and real people. All characters and dialogue are fictionalized for commentary and educational purposes. It's not meant to defame or mislead, but to prompt reflection and civic engagement. Thanks for watching. Truth hasn't ended. It's just waiting for someone brave enough to carry it further.